talk to us about this shift. The Fed is no longer going to just look at U3 and wants to see other signs of tightening labor. From your perspective, how historic is that to have a Federal Reserve that's that explicit about the goals of full employment?
It's remarkable, and I think it's a really important shift. In the same way that Congress has learned from the mistakes of 2009 and 2010 when designing the American Rescue Plan, I think this Fed is learning from some of their mistakes, or at least some of their overcautious behavior from the mid-2010s, 2015, 2016, 2017, where they acted as if unemployment couldn't get much below, say, 4.5%. It turned out unemployment got below 4% for 2 years and was at about 3.5% for half a year before COVID hit. And I think that caused them to rethink rethink the paradigm for how low unemployment can get. And notably, the things that aren't captured, as you said, in the headline measure, but things like wage compression, people who are traditionally left out or not seeking employment being brought into the labor force. I think they're very proud of their record and how low they got unemployment in 2019. And I think they want to go back to that under Powell.
Yeah, they certainly do. They also seem to recognize that there were, I guess, some mistakes or missteps in the way that they came, I guess, off the floor with rates the last time around. I am curious as to when you talk about them looking at other numbers other than the headline rates here, do they open themselves up, I guess, to the idea that they are either cherry picking data or that they're maybe being a little bit too biased towards some factors over another?
I think right now all the data that they're looking at speaks in the same direction, which is how tight is the labor market and how high pressure is it for work, in terms of economic activity. So, when you think of unemployment, there's a good reason you would look at labor force participation, because especially over the past decade, labor force participation, which is on their dashboard, catches up people who have stopped looking for work. In the same way, you don't have quite a great sense on how intense the labor market is at the low end unless you see wages increasing among those at the bottom of the income distribution, as they were in 2019. So, they could be accused of this depending on how far out they go. But for right now, they all speak in the same direction. And many of the things, such as employment prospects for people who are traditionally locked out or have a hard time with our labor markets, I think go further in depth into what they want to be doing as opposed to trying to drag in other kinds of priorities.
Mike, what's kind of amazing is if we think back to the campaign trail, it was then that now President Biden was talking about a third mantra, a third mission for the Federal Reserve to be that of inequality. It should start to be taken into their thought process, into their policy making. How much do you see the sea change in terms of policy making in general in the United States? I sit here in Europe kind of amazed at the social and safety net that is being built to a certain degree, much more than ever really used to in the United States. Is there something dramatic shifting here, or will the pendulum swing again?
You don't want to be too bold in these predictions, but I think the last year has really made people rethink how we deliver care in this country, the conditions under essential workers labor under, how vulnerable we can be, but also how much the government can deploy resources and at what scale. We saw tremendous energy from Congress, from the Federal Reserve, through programs like unemployment insurance, through the checks that were sent out to people, to be able to address these needs. And, though our handling of the pandemic was often quite hit or miss, our economic recovery might be one of the strongest in the globe, precisely because of the fact that the Federal Reserve and Congress, with its spending powers, have coordinated together. So, hopefully that momentum goes forward. We can understand we can tackle even bigger problems like poverty, like climate change.
So we have this, we've been talking about it earlier, we're going to get this Build Back Better program. Presumably there's going to be some tax hikes along with it, along with infrastructure. In your view, where right now should the administration be really putting its energy? Because although it has the majority, it doesn't have unlimited political capital, obviously. Already the midterms are coming up before too long. They barely have a majority in both the House and the Senate. Where would be a smart place for them to put their chips next in terms of both the spending but also the taxation side? And as you say, sort of build on some of this momentum that progressives have seen over the last year.
I think there's a couple clear goals. One is to get unemployment to 3.5% by the end of next year. That's going to require about 9.5 million jobs, maybe about 500,000 a month when you average them out. That's a reasonable goal. Projections say that you can do that. Though if things go wrong or if the administration slips up in some ways, it might become a much harder goal. So I think that at the very least is a baseline. I think they understand that. The second is when people actually looked at what President Biden was promising on the campaign trail, he talked on the order of spending $5 trillion this year, roughly split between recovery and reform. The reform part was manufacturing, infrastructure, care work, and climate. And that would be the second bill that we're talking about. And they're talking about a headline $3 trillion. I think there needs to be effort to work in that direction. I think there needs to be a climate bill this year, and I think these things need to happen. You know, obviously the prospects look tough right now, but it's going to be a long road, and there's going to be a lot of time for people to change their minds, re-examine how the filibuster works, and rethink about what the debt and deficit needs to be and how much we can tax capital to ensure that we have a better economy.